Hi guys, Dong Ngo here, and this is the AirStation Extreme AC1900 DDWRT NXT wireless router from Buffalo. Now this one has a second from the same company that come preloaded with the open source firmware called DDWRT. But unlike the previous one, this one here comes with a special build of that firmware called NXT that supposedly works better with the router with better stability. Now, stable it might be, but there's a downside to that because the NXT firmware does not have all the features and settings found in the generic version of the DDWRT firmware. And that's not all. With the Buffalo here, the firmware actually kind of crippled the router. For example, the port right here, the USB port on the front and on the back here, they don't work yet. And also, there's a button down here to change the router's role from a router to a media bridge to an access point. Doesn't work either. And that's because the firmware on the inside does not support those port and button yet. Now, it might or might not support them in the future, but right now, these ports here are just basically useless. Also, when you log into the web interface of the firmware, you can find out that there's not many features, and there's a huge lack of depth in terms of customization. Now, for example, you cannot even view all the connected clients, and if you want to add one or two clients to the IP reservation list, you have to manually find and type in the MAC address for each client. In short, if you're a fan of DDWRT for its vast amount of features and crazy level of customization, well, don't be too excited about this Buffalo router here. But it's not a complete loss. It has quite a nice design here, and over here, there's a door that opens up to the place where you can use it to mount the router on the wall, and you're gonna find the default setting that allows you to use it right away. And in my testing, it performed quite well, slightly above the average of AC1900 routers on the market. Its range wasn't the best though, about 160 feet away, but it did have very stable Wi-Fi signal, working for days on end without disconnecting even once. So to be fair, this one could still make a great router if it costs $100 or so. Unfortunately, it costs double that, $200, making it quite expensive and not a good deal at all because you can get many other similar router for much less. In fact, you can get the exact same one here from Buffalo without the open source firmware for $170. Still expensive, but at least all of the ports and buttons will work. So I'm not sure what the deal is with the Buffalo here. Now for more on this one here, check out my full review at CNET.com. Basically, it's not a bad router, quite a good one actually, but it's just too expensive for what it has to offer. Let me put it this way, it's so lacking that the fact I'm touching it right now will not make it any better. And I have very appealing touch. And that's because I'm Dong Ngo, and this has been the first look at the AirStation Extreme AC1900 DDWRT NXT wireless router from Buffalo.